Okay, how's it going, everybody, and welcome to a quick hero preview of Apollo. He's going to be a hero in the Moba Genesis, coming out on the PS4 July 18th. So very excited for the game to come out. Basically, these kind of hero previews is going to be me talking about the idea of the hero, what their abilities do, maybe ways around them, in case you lane against them, and maybe how to use them, so that way whenever you start the game you can sort of already get a good idea as to who you're playing, how they work, and things like that. So let's go ahead and get into it. Apollo is the god of sun and light. No dark evil can escape his bow. It's his little description there. So his background, Apollo, one of the 12 prime gods of Olympus, the god of light, also the god of music and art. Apollo has a more friendly attitude when it comes to humans. He sees Zeus' politics as borderline tyrannical, but Apollo wisely keeps quiet. After the battle of the Silent Sea that took place on the moon, his doubt in Zeus further deepens. Can the Pantheon really retain its previous glory under Zeus' rule? The promise of Kronos planted an idea in the mind of Apollo. What if he was to lead? So he's kind of this secret good guy that's a little bit kind of against the tyrant Zeus, wants to actually help out the humans and things like that. Pretty interesting concept. I do like his little like sentient, I guess, armor and bow and stuff like that. So here he doesn't have as much armor on. I guess you can see he's like this energy dude, pretty cool. So that's Apollo's lore, his background, his description. There's his skins here, as you can see. Two skins. So we're gonna go ahead and hit skills. We're gonna start with this first skill, Sunfire. This skill seems like it's got some high energy costs, but a low cooldown. So they don't want you to spam it, but they want you to be able to use it in, maybe to poke or just to clear wave whenever you're behind on minions and stuff like that. So it says here, releases the fires of the sun at a target area, slowing all enemy units and dealing damage over time. So this is a area of effect slow that has a dot effect. So first ability, very, very strong. As you can see, there's only 4 abilities. Every hero typically has 4 abilities, or it has 3 abilities and 1 passive, or it has 2 abilities and 2 passives. So 4 abilities across the board. So these heroes aren't, they're not walking around with 5 abilities and a passive, or 4 abilities and a passive. These are kind of more dumbed down, but each ability, I'm assuming, has more to it than just you damage. And in fact, a lot of these heroes, it seems like their abilities are pretty powerful for abilities. So we're not really sure how these energy costs are going to work in the game yet, but it seems like these are fairly high starting off. The increase is only by 5 per level, so that's kind of low. But you'll see here in a bit why he's able to sort of spam this for a little bit. So Sunfire, pretty great ability. I would suggest if you're laning against Apollo, you probably don't want to be positioning around your minions too much. You might want to be off to the side or further back, clearing the wave, or just sending your support to kind of force Apollo to use the ability, and then for the next 6 seconds you can run in, get a last hit here and there, or get a poke out and then back up. So that way you're not getting slowed and dotted for the period of the laning phase, because it's a very powerful ability. It's an AoE dot, like very, very strong. Let's go ahead and go to Blinding Light. So his second ability, which is actually a passive, as you can see, energy cost 0, cooldown 0. I'm assuming these are all passives. He doesn't have to activate them or do anything, they're just kind of there. So it says Apollo's Radiant Arrows have a chance to stun the target and deal additional damage. So very, very strong chance ability here, because instead of getting one sort of, oh, you have the chance to stun, or oh, you have the chance to deal additional damage, it is both. So you have the chance to stun and deal additional damage. An ADC with 2 abilities right off the bat that both slow, deal dot damage, and stun and deal bonus damage is pretty strong. Some ways around this, obviously this is a chance ability, so it's not going to be happening. It's not a permanent, like, oh, I activate the ability, now you're stunned and you get additional damage, so it's going to be a little bit harder to kind of tell if he autos you if you're going to get stunned. It also doesn't really say how long the stun is or how much bonus damage is dealt, but I'm assuming that, the chance to stun is not like in League, where if you go for crit chance, if you have like 25% crit chance, you essentially crit every 4 autos. So maybe 3 autos on the wave and then 1 auto on the enemy, or vice versa, 3 autos on the enemy and 1 auto on the wave, to try and get the most autos, chances to crit. I'm not sure if that's how this is going to work, so like if it starts off at 25% or something like that, because it doesn't say, but I'm assuming the higher the level, the higher the chance to stun or deal additional damage would be the case. Relating against this, obviously he has no way of assuring this type of effect happening, so I would assume burst damage being the direct counter to Apollo, especially because his first ability being a DOT, he doesn't have immense burst. He has, the longer the team fight, the more times he gets blinding light off, the more times he gets sunfire, essentially the quadruple the damage he ends up doing. So if you're able to burst him down fast enough before he can get his, his bonus damage and his dot effect finished, that's pretty strong. But it is weak against burst damage. So if you think you're laning against Apollo, maybe want to try and go for a burst heavy comp to just take him out so he's not really a problem there. Golden Bow is his third ability. It's another passive. So this guy's got 2 passives, and I'm assuming 2 abilities. So Apollo's Golden Bow allows him to make full use of his archery abilities, greatly increasing his attack range. So he's a bit safer as well because of this. He's got some pretty safe ways of doing DPS because of his slow and staying further away with his chance to stun and do additional damage. So he's kind of a pretty safe pick. So I'm assuming, him not having any mobility abilities so far, it would be basically like a speed comp mixed with a burst comp, I guess, because he doesn't have any way of dashing out of there. He has to position accordingly straight off the bat. He can't reposition. He's got to be in the position to be okay, and so he's going to be a very, very skill-heavy character due to that, really, just because he's got CC, but he doesn't have mobility. So if you're from Smite, probably think of Artemis, where Artemis kind of doesn't have any mobility, like dashes or anything. She's got a little bit of mobility with her steroid and haste ability, but that's really not what you want to use when you're getting chased, because you probably already used it during the fight. So it's probably on cooldown by the time the fight's over, and you gotta kite backwards. He does have his own kite abilities with the slow and the stun, and then he just kind of tries to use the range as a leg up to just get a little bit additional time getting blinding light off, to then slow you with sunfire, back up and get some more blinding lights off with his range. So that's really all I can think of to counter this. Let's go ahead and look at his ultimate, Radiant Arrow. So this energy cost is way bigger, as I'm assuming it's his ultimate. But if you look at the cooldowns, they're very, very low. They are reduced by 8 seconds, essentially, I think, every... no, not 8. They're reduced by 6. Except for... So 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So yeah, they're reduced by 4. Sorry, I don't know why I couldn't think of the number. Pretty low cooldown for an ultimate, but again, he does have the 2 passives here that aren't like 100% there all the time. So Radiant Arrow is just going to be there to give him that additional ability. After charging, Apollo fires a blazing arrow at his target, dealing massive damage. Charge period increases with distance to the target. So I'm assuming the closer they are, the sooner it goes off. Doesn't look like the damage is increased with the distance either. It's just kind of like you're always going to get the same damage. It's just the time for the arrow to get to them is changed. So that's pretty interesting ability, especially for his final ability. I mean, it looks like you want to spam it, but at the same time, that energy cost is so high. I mean, really you're just going to be playing around these two abilities of getting your chances to stun and do additional damage and your range, and then if they get too close to Sunfire and turn and burn, get out of there, and then kite backwards trying to get the stun off. And then maybe if they push too hard and you get your stun off and they're too low and they know they're going to die and they try and back off, that's when you use Radiant Arrow to finish them off. And you just kind of, repeat that over and over again till, the team fight's won, or till you feel like you've won the trade. So overall, he seems like he's going to be pretty meta character. He seems fairly safe with his additional range and everything. And then also, with his crowd control abilities, he seems like he's going to have a pretty decent effect in team fights. I mean, just sitting there autoing with the chance of stunning and doing additional damage is in itself pretty great. But then you add in crit on top of that, and it's like you might accidentally just one-shot somebody, and they can't do anything about it because now they're stunned. That's pretty interesting character concept. I kind of like it. It's very, very high risk, high reward type play here, because he's essentially safe because of his range, but at the same time he's unsafe because he doesn't have a reposition ability. And if you guys have played MOBAs, I'm sure there's going to be a character with a pull or something in this game to where, if he's out of position, he gets pulled in, he's pretty much going to be smacked like crazy. And so that seems like the trade-off with playing Apollo. So if you guys want to lane against him, try and bring some characters that force him into changing his position, force him into moving around, so he's wasting time not autoing you, getting those what's it called, the blinding light off. Yeah, that's pretty much what I can come up with so far. If you guys can think of anything, make sure to mention it in the comments. I hope this video was helpful to you guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you later. See you later. Bye.